The clatter of pots and pans filled your ears while you ensured everything was running smoothly and on time, watching the oven and the stovetop and breathing in all the rich smells that filled the kitchen. After moving in and living for a few months with Shouto Todoroki, he decided to invite friends over for Christmas, somewhat returning the favor Midoriya had last year despite it primarily being a celebration for his proposal to his now fiancée. Unfortunately, not everyone was able to make it, having learnt that they made plans of their own. This did not deter you though while you prepped the large dinner for tonight, while also calling in a friend early for an extra hand. "Thank you for coming, Uraraka." You sighed with relief once you cooled a few dishes from the stove. "I wouldn't know what to do with the time I have."
What are friends for? Besides, with what happened lately between everybody, it's good to see you're okay.
Chirped Uraraka while she began to migrate dishes from one counter or another, keeping them as warm as possible before the advent of guests were to arrive at the doorstep.
Same.
You watched the stovetop slowly cook away, but your thoughts flew elsewhere. A lot had transpired over the course of this manic mayhem in Musatafu. Despite the heat of the kitchen, you still felt that chill in your bones and seizing your lungs, if only for a fair few minutes while staring up at the sky in Todoroki's arms. You saw him glow a light. His flames licked against your skin but did not harm you, recalling the flicker of heat that only scorched past the chill. There was another, but you succumbed to the cold before grabbing a good hard look. It was only after that you felt the warmth return, slowly, like a smoldering fire attempting to reignite. The capture was successful, but at what cost, you thought, while you played around with the ring that was still bound on your finger, twirling it in anxiousness.
Say, did you get a chance to check out the store I suggested?
Chirped Uraraka while she brought you back from your thoughts. You gasped a little, drawing concern to her eyes before you masked it with a slight nervous chuckle.
Oh, yeah, Shouto and I got a quick glance some time ago.
You quickly piped while you continued to stir a few dishes on the stove.
We have ideas in mind, but it's a shame we didn't bump into Midoriya there. Shouto was hoping to ask him a few things. I heard he already had a look himself with his fiancée. Bad timing, I guess.
The company, while preparing for the Christmas celebrations, was a reprieve, smiling at an old friend before the dishes were ready to be stored to cool and prepare again. A sense of normalcy was a reward. After what had happened in capturing Seek, the Endeavor Agency allowed you time to recuperate from the severity of your condition. Though you were back on your feet after a day or two, it was still suggested for you to stay until the new year transpired. Part of you wondered how much of this was Todoroki's doing in encouraging the decision to keep you at home. But you also saw the exhaustion in his eyes, now tracking the front's position thanks to his eldest brother, truthful or not.
How is the agency?
Slowly asked Uraraka, catching you off guard once again. You began to wonder if she was reading your mind before you caught her curious gaze.
They're doing their best. Not surprising given the charity ball.
You commented while you wiped a little sweat from your brow and unclothing your apron.
At least from what I heard, the agency is set to push forward with further investigations and be able to send out more psychics into the field. And I want to be there.
Uraraka turned her gaze onto you, watching that determined look in your eye. Despite all that you had been put through, you had grown from the experience and had pushed your limits, surprising not only yourself but Todoroki as well. At the very least, you hoped he was able to complete one request of yours before the sound of the door caught your ear. Uraraka and yourself turn to find a very exhausted Todoroki entering his home, with a slight chill from the snow-covered paths catching him from behind. His hair draped his shoulders before they slid across the jacket he began to slip off upon stepping foot inside. His tired eyes glanced towards the both of you, finding a smiling Uraraka who waved happily while you gazed upon his form, concerned.
Welcome back, Todoroki.
Greeted Uraraka.
Are you okay?
You followed after.
Yes, just the cold getting to me.
He dryly replied while he fixed the collar of his turtleneck. You stared at him oddly. The cold? Todoroki never had any issues with the climate of any season. Something else was off.
I'll be heading out.
Piped Uraraka, taking your attention away once more.
Need to change into more festive clothes, but everything should be ready for tonight. Thanks again, Uraraka.
You chirped.
Take your time, okay?
You were met with a content smile from Uraraka before she left you to your devices, collecting her coat and bidding Todoroki farewell. As soon as the front doors shut to keep the cold at bay, you turned to Todoroki, still fixing his long hair that haphazardly still draped everywhere, possibly from the breeze outside.
What's wrong?
You asked while approaching the man, eyeing a pout on his lips, at least if one looked close enough to tell. His eyes glanced towards you without uttering a word, confused by this almost childish reaction from him.
I looked into Soul's situation.
He slowly replied while he watched your eyes widen in anticipation.
Now that the commission is under review again, the Corellia office is taking him in. That's the best I could do.
You breathed a sigh of relief given the circumstances, but not without smiling back at Todoroki for his efforts, even though you saw the reluctance in his eyes. Soul had helped, much to Todoroki's chagrin, and you heard word that Rainmaker was involved as well during the chase. However, by law, Soul had broken it by using his quirk in public, given that he was on a working visa with a review in his citizenry. You had requested one thing from Todoroki, and he had succeeded with some success.
Maybe Sero might be able to help him out if he's heading to his agency.
You piped.
It was Sero's idea.
Corrected Todoroki, taking you aback.
He insisted.
You wondered about that kind of result, given the mishap of Kaminari's impromptu rescue mission during Musatafu's attacks. Yet Sero was oddly a good friend of Todoroki despite the strange personality mix between the two. You found it funny how his friendships with his former classmates had changed him somehow, just as much as your friendships with your fellows back in Class 3B. It brought a smile seeing how far everyone had come to this point.
Are we ready for tonight?
You asked, sending that same gentle smile towards Todoroki before you found his hands clasped over yours.
Are you sure you want to do this?
He queried, his hands warming yours immediately. You saw the worried look in his eyes, still reeling from the fact that after all these years you had transcended your quirk, but with the fear of its greatest drawback. It was a fleeting moment when it happened, at least you felt it so. Yet, watching Todoroki now constantly tapping into the heat he brought with him made you smile with content, given his history with that part of his quirk alone.
Absolutely.
You definitively replied, that determination returning tenfold with Todoroki present.
Now I'm truly your sidekick.
Todoroki only watched you beam with delight and prospect. Though he had his reservations, it seemed a lot had been cleared over the months prior, leaving him with some concerns buried while others were still on his mind. He suddenly felt the pull of your hands leading him out towards the front of his townhouse into the evening light, despite wearing no coat from either of you to protect you from the cold. It was then that arms wrapped around his body, leaving you hugging against his chest while you stared towards the city skyline with its last embers of light fading away. Todoroki's warmth filled you inside while the prick of the cold attacked your skin. But you still stayed, watching the last of the sunlight disappear. Todoroki smiled, unable to contain the love he felt that swelled in his chest. He held you close, never wanting to release you while the flickers of sunlight soon dipped behind the skyline, reverting to the street lights that now pottered along the pavements. He saw your stubbornness, but also your resolve. Loyal and true, as lofty as those thoughts may have been. Todoroki was never one to care about resolutions, but he felt that he owed you better, now that plans were underway.
Todoroki!
Called out a familiar voice that piqued the jewel-haired man, spotting that familiar head of messy green hair in the distance with a wave. There, Izuku Midoriya and his fiancée approached him, carrying bags of what may have been baked goods for the night. Midoriya never failed to bring gifts.
Merry Christmas, you two!
Piped his fiancée with a smile.
We brought some Christmas treats! Can't wait to see what kind of designs we have this year.
You mused, eyeing the bags curiously. Despite the cold now prickling your skin, you smiled warmly at the two, still with an arm around Todoroki who still kept you warm against the winter breeze. You noticed the sudden realization across Midoriya's face at the sight of you, finding you had nothing but one item of clothing instead of anything more to protect you from the cold.
Should we head inside?
He suggested, only earning a shake from your head.
Shouto? And I wanted to let you both know our plans for next year before the others show up.
You replied, eyeing the man beside you with an affirming smile on his face.
We decided to hold our special day in the winter,
announced Todoroki.
Isn't that going to be... problematic?
Asked Midoriya's fiancée, a little hesitant in their question only to find you not at all offended.
I already spoke to Ida's head of research and development, and they said that they have a surprise for me as a Christmas present.
You answered, unsure whether to find that a good or bad thing, depending on the result in the end. It caused everyone else to slightly muse about the thought, before Midoriya piped once more, recalling a thought of his own.
Speaking of which, I think Ida said he was running late.
He informed Todoroki.
Odd.
Dryly commented Todoroki, earning a low chuckle from you.
I guess he has a lot on his plate.
You motioned.
But... shall we offer a warm welcome for Midoriya?
Todoroki knew the look in your eye, already having discussed earlier about something you wanted to try if only to satiate your own curiosity due to your absence away from the agency. He smiled genially, allowing to release you and stand a distance away from your guests. Both Midoriya and his fiancée watched on curiously at the spectacle, wondering what was going on, until you motioned your hands above the snow. With a deep breath, as if you were pulling waves from the coastal shores, you felt your temperature drop significantly, while the light feathered particles of snow slowly drifted from the pavement. Todoroki watched you closely while he began to immediately follow your lead, creating frost from his palm and soon joining hands with you. Though the chill returned down to your bones, you could feel yourself pulling the snow from around you, including Todoroki. With his hands in yours, you both threw them into the air, while a burst of snow and ice dazzled against the streetlights, plumed above into a spray of ice dust before they floated back softly as particles of snow. Then with another wave, you collected a handful of snow, throwing it into the air while it swirled around you, sending it high above before exploding into another puff of soft powder, dancing in the breeze. Your guests stared in awe, watching makeshift snow float towards the earth while you were able to make them dance along the breeze. Yet with every movement, The cold numbed your fingers and toes, before Todoroki offered to take you in his arms to warm you, twirling you into his chest until you released a line of snow from the ground into the air with one final sweep of your hands. The spectacle was over while the heat returned, held in Todoroki's embrace. You turned towards the two before you, finding their eyes awed by the sight of falling snow this early in the night.
We're still working on our wedding dance,
explained Todoroki, his head by your ear while he nuzzled gently on your neck to keep you warm.
That was beautiful,
remarked Midoriya's fiancé.
We should get on to finding a teacher, huh?
The question brought a slight fluster on Midoriya's face, only earning a warm chuckle from you, and ironically from Todoroki as well. Soon you allowed them to enter the home, letting them take the lead inside, while you felt Todoroki's palm, warmer than normal, in yours.
We don't have to have it in winter if you're not comfortable,
advised Todoroki, eyeing you for any reactions about the decision made. Yet he only saw you smile, still warming up with the warmth of his hands and of his home, while you turned to him with that same resolve he saw moments ago.
I want to do right by you,
you simply explained, catching him momentarily from the statement.
No matter what happens, I'll stay by your side. I'll always keep your promise.
Todoroki couldn't contain his gentle smile, while he absent-mindedly tucked your hair before pulling you in for a warm and tender kiss. Though you had learnt new and strange yet ironic ways to use your quirk, it seemed to complement everything Todoroki was, in and out of your professional waking lives. Now you felt you simply fit. More so than before, like more of the jigsaw pieces revealed themselves between the both of you. With warm hands, Todoroki led you back into the home you now called yours, along with his.
Welcome home, love,
he deeply uttered with a whisper, before shutting the door behind.